Marcus worked 2 extra shifts every week for 4 years. He skipped vacations. He packed his lunch. He declined invitations. He tracked every dollar with obsessive precision. His singular mission was destroying his mortgage 14 years ahead of schedule. He made his final payment on a Tuesday afternoon, sat in his car in the driveway, and cried tears of genuine relief. He was 46 years old, completely debt-free, and had $22,000 in his retirement account. His neighbor David had the same mortgage, the same interest rate, and started in the exact same financial position 4 years earlier. David kept making his minimum mortgage payment and did something different with the extra money Marcus was pouring into principal. He invested it, every month, without fail. David still had 22 years left on his mortgage. He also had $341,000 in index funds compounding at a rate that made his mortgage feel like background noise. 2 neighbors, same income, same starting point, same 4 years. One felt free, one was free. Those are not the same thing. This is not a story about 2 men and their mortgages. It is a story about the most emotionally satisfying financial mistake millions of people make every single year. A mistake so deeply woven into conventional wisdom that questioning it feels almost irresponsible. Almost. Paying off debt early feels right. It feels virtuous. It feels like the responsible choice that every financially disciplined adult should make. What it rarely feels like is a mathematical error. But for a very specific category of debt, that is exactly what it is. Today, I am going to show you why the feeling of being debt-free and the mathematics of building wealth are 2 completely different destinations, and why following the feeling without understanding the math is one of the most reliable ways to stay poor while appearing to make all the right decisions. Here is what most people don't realize when they declare war on their debt. Not all debt is the same. Treating every debt as an enemy to be eliminated as quickly as possible is the financial equivalent of putting a smoke alarm in your shower. The tool is technically correct in the right context and completely wrong in this one. There is high-cost debt and there is low-cost debt. High-cost debt is a genuine emergency. Low-cost debt is a tool. Confusing the 2 costs people hundreds of thousands of dollars over a lifetime, and nobody advertises this mistake because the institutions that profit from the confusion have every incentive to keep it invisible. Here is what this video will give you: a clear framework for understanding which debts to attack aggressively and which debts to manage quietly while your money works harder somewhere else. By the time you finish this, you will see the math that banks understand and financial media rarely explains, and you will have a concrete plan for where every extra dollar should go based on the actual numbers rather than the emotional pull of a zero balance. Let me start with the mechanism that makes early debt payoff so mathematically dangerous for certain types of debt. Every dollar has one job at a time. When you send an extra $500 to your mortgage principal, that dollar goes to work reducing a debt that charges you, say, 3.75% annually. That is its only job. It reduces a low-cost obligation. When you invest that same $500 in a broadly diversified index fund, that dollar goes to work in an asset class that has returned an average of approximately 10% annually over the past century, according to S&P 500 historical data. The math works like this. The extra mortgage payment saves you 3.75%. The investment earns you approximately 10%. The difference is 6.25% per year, compounded on every single dollar. Over 30 years, that 6.25% gap transforms $1 into nearly $6 of additional wealth. The person paying down their 3.75% mortgage early is not retiring debt. They are trading $6 of future wealth for $1 of debt reduction today. Read that again. Then ask yourself why nobody mentioned this in every conversation you have ever heard about getting out of debt. Rule 1. Know your rates before you write a single extra check. This sounds obvious. Almost nobody actually does it. Write down every debt you carry and its interest rate. Not the monthly payment. The annual interest rate. Credit cards are typically in the range of 19 to 29%. Personal loans often run from 8 to 18%. Auto loans average somewhere around 7 to 9% for recent years. Federal student loans issued in recent years typically run between 4 and 8%, depending on loan type. Mortgages originated in the low-rate environment of 2020 and 21 carry rates between 2.5 and 3.5%. Mortgages originated more recently might carry rates between 6 and 7%. These numbers are not equivalent obligations. A 24% credit card balance is a financial emergency consuming roughly 1/4 of its balance in pure interest every year. A 3% mortgage is essentially cheap rent. You pay to own an appreciating asset while your money works elsewhere. Treating these identically is like treating a paper cut and a broken leg with the same urgency. Both are technically injuries. Only one requires immediate intervention. Rule 2. Understand the real return of paying down debt. When you pay down a credit card charging 24% interest, your effective return is 24%, risk-free, guaranteed. No investment in the world offers that return with certainty. The math unambiguously favors obliterating high-interest debt before investing a single dollar elsewhere. Every dollar not going into that high-interest balance is a dollar paying 24% to the bank. But when you pay down a mortgage at 3.5%, your effective return is 3.5%. The S&P 500 has historically returned approximately 10% annually. Treasury bonds have historically returned around 4 to 5% depending on the period. Even conservative diversified portfolios have outperformed 3 and 4% debt over any meaningful time horizon. The moment your debt rate falls below what a reasonable investment could earn, the math flips. Paying down that debt early is no longer the smart move. It is the emotional move. Those are very different decisions. Rule 3. Recognize the liquidity trap hiding inside every extra mortgage payment. Here is where it gets interesting. Extra mortgage payments do not just produce a lower return than investing. They produce a return that is completely inaccessible until you sell or refinance. When Marcus sent his extra payment to the mortgage company, that money was gone. It was equity locked inside the house. He could not call his mortgage company in an emergency and ask for it back. He could not use it when his car engine failed, when his furnace died, or when a medical bill arrived. His equity was a number on a statement that required an entirely new loan application to access. When David invested that same money, it remained liquid. Not perfectly liquid, retirement accounts have rules, but accessible. Meaningful emergencies could be handled without going back into debt. The person with the paid-off house but $22,000 in savings has a fully owned roof over their head and almost no financial resilience. One unexpected expense sends them straight back to borrowing. The person with the mortgage and $300,000 in investments can absorb serious disruptions and keep building. Financial security is not the absence of debt. It is the presence of assets. These are not the same thing, and conflating them is one of the most common and costly mistakes in personal finance. Rule 4. Study how wealthy people actually use debt. Warren Buffett has said that buying his Omaha home was a good investment. He did not rush to pay it off early. Real estate investors use mortgages as leverage to control assets worth far more than their down payment while earning returns on the full asset value. Business owners borrow to fund operations that return more than the cost of borrowing. The wealthy do not avoid debt, they use it strategically. They borrow at low rates and deploy capital at higher ones. They understand the difference between debt that enriches a lender at their expense and debt that allows them to control appreciating assets while investing freed capital elsewhere. The cultural programming that says all debt is shameful and must be destroyed immediately serves lenders who benefit enormously from customers irrationally rushing to pay off low-rate balances instead of investing. Someone accelerating payments on a 3% mortgage while carrying zero in investments is doing something that feels disciplined and is actually the opposite. They are choosing 3% over 10% because the 3% choice comes with an emotional reward that the investment does not provide in the short term. Rule 5. Understand the tax dimension that changes the math further. Mortgage interest has historically been deductible for many homeowners who itemize deductions, though tax law changes have reduced the number of people for whom this applies. For those who still benefit from the deduction, the effective after-tax cost of mortgage interest is even lower than the stated rate. A 6% mortgage becomes a 4.2% mortgage in a 32% tax bracket when deductible. Meanwhile, investment returns in retirement accounts like 401ks and Roth IRAs grow tax-advantaged or tax-free. This tax asymmetry further widens the gap between paying down deductible low-rate debt and investing in tax-sheltered accounts. If you have not maxed out your employer's 401k match before making extra debt payments on any debt below 8%, you are declining free money to pay down a below-market rate obligation. That is the sentence most financial advisors will tell you in the first meeting if you ask them plainly. Extra mortgage payments before capturing the employer match is one of the most expensive financial errors a person can make. Rule 6. Separate the emotional math from the actual math and make a conscious choice about which one to follow. I want to be honest about something. The math is not the only thing that matters. Debt genuinely causes stress for many people. The psychological burden of owing money affects sleep, relationships, and decision-making in ways that are real and legitimate. If paying off a debt removes a mental obstacle that is currently preventing you from functioning well financially, that emotional benefit has real value. But that is a conscious trade. It is not a mathematical win. It is a psychological purchase. The problem is that most people making this trade do not know they are making it. They believe they are being financially smart when they are actually being financially emotional. Neither choice is inherently wrong, but only one of them is honest about what it is. If you choose to pay down a low-rate debt early because the peace of mind is genuinely worth the opportunity cost to you, that is a legitimate decision made with clear eyes. If you choose to pay down that debt believing you are optimizing your financial outcomes, you are not. The math does not support it. Now let me show you what this looks like in real numbers across two people making the same decision differently. Patricia is 34 years old with a mortgage at 3.8%, a car loan at 6.9%, and a credit card balance at 22%. She earns $90,000 annually and has $700 per month she can deploy beyond her minimum required payments. Most well-meaning advice she has received tells her to attack her debts with that $700. She does. She puts all of it toward extra debt payments starting with the credit card. That part is correct. She eliminates the 22% credit card balance in 8 months. Then she attacks the car loan. Gone in 2 years. Then she turns the full $700 toward extra mortgage payments. She feels extraordinary. By 44, her mortgage has 12 years left instead of 22. She has approximately $68,000 in retirement savings. Her home equity is substantial. Her net worth on paper looks decent. But her investment account has barely grown because for most of her 30s, she was funneling extra capital into a 3.8% debt paydown instead of investment accounts averaging over 9% annually. Now meet James, who starts in exactly the same position as Patricia. Same age, same income, same mortgage rate, same car loan, same credit card balance, same $700 per month. James attacks the 22% credit card with the same urgency Patricia did. That is unambiguous math, gone in 8 months the same timeline. He keeps paying the car loan minimum and the mortgage minimum. When the credit card is cleared, he does something Patricia did not. He checks his mortgage rate against the historical market return. He sees 3.8% against approximately 10%. He invests the $700 instead of accelerating his mortgage, every month, without exception. He automates the transfer the same day his paycheck hits. He does not see the money sitting there. It is not a temptation. By 44, James still has 12 years on his mortgage and a car payment in his rearview mirror. He also has $362,000 in investment accounts compounding at a rate that is becoming genuinely difficult to stop. His net worth is not just higher than Patricia's, it is higher by a margin that cannot be closed by any debt paydown strategy Patricia could pursue from this point forward. The gap is not because James earned more. It is because James understood what the money was doing at 3.8% versus what it could do at 9 to 10%. Here is what to do with this information starting now. This week, list every debt you carry, the balance remaining, and the annual interest rate. Be precise, not approximate. Find the actual rate on every statement. This week, identify any employer retirement match you are not fully capturing. If your employer matches 50% of contributions up to 6% of salary and you are contributing 4%, you are leaving free money on the table regardless of any other debt situation. Capturing the full match is always the first move. This month, rank your debts by interest rate from highest to lowest. Any debt above 8%, and some people draw the line at 7%, is a priority target. Minimum payments on everything else, maximum payments on the highest rate. This is the debt avalanche method, and it is mathematically optimal. It does not feel as satisfying as paying off the smallest balances first, but it costs less money. This quarter, once your high-rate debts are gone, redirect the freed cash flow toward investment accounts. Roth IRA if you qualify, 401k beyond the match, taxable brokerage if you have maxed the others. Automate the transfer so the decision is never revisited monthly. This year, resist the pull toward extra mortgage payments if your rate is below 6% and your investment accounts are not fully funded. The math does not support accelerating a 3 or 4% debt while leaving investment accounts empty. It feels responsible. It is not. The exception applies if you are within 2 to 3 years of retirement, if your mortgage rate is above 6% in an environment where market returns may compress, or if the psychological burden of carrying the mortgage is genuinely affecting your quality of life in ways you have honestly evaluated. These are valid exceptions. They are not the default case. Here is what lies beneath all of this math. The reason so many people rush to pay off low-rate debt is that they have internalized a story about what financial safety looks like. The story says that debt is danger and absence of debt is security. That story was true for their grandparents, who lived through an era when debt was expensive, volatile, and socially stigmatized. It is partially true today for high-rate consumer debt, but it was never mathematically true for low-rate, fixed-cost debt in an investing environment that reliably outperforms it. The person who is genuinely financially secure is not the one with the paid-off house and an empty investment account. It is the one with growing assets that can absorb disruption, fund retirement, and provide optionality when life changes. Wealth is not the absence of debt. Wealth is the presence of assets that generate more than any debt costs you. The debt-free feeling is real. The math behind it, for low-rate debt, is a comfortable illusion. Every dollar knows only one thing: the rate of return you assign it. What you do with that dollar is the only financial decision that actually matters.